I was talking to my brother who's a PhD. He's an anthropologist. And he said to me, do you control your technology or does your technology control you? And my first instinct was like, well, I control my technology. I don't even know what you're asking me. And he goes, well, when your phone buzzes, do you immediately pick it up? And I said, of course I do. Like, I can't help myself. And he goes, so basically you're Pavlov's dog. Your phone has trained you that when it dings or buzzes or vibrates, that you have a reaction to it. And if you don't look at it, you start to get anxious. Your tech controls you. So there's this whole movement of going, I'm leaving my phone behind, I'm leaving my laptop behind, and I'm just going to come totally analog and unplug for 24 hours.
Well, we're super excited to have Stacy Garcia here with us today, in person in Arizona. You're here for your Trends tour, so yes. Welcome.
Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be in your space here in this fabulous podcast studio in sunny Arizona, getting away from the New York cold. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. We're super excited to have you.
We switched the sun on for you today.
You did. I know. It's gorgeous. Yeah. So I'm really excited. This is the 10th stop on a 12-city tour that we are doing in collaboration with NEWH, which is Network of Executive Women in Hospitality. And it was an idea that kind of came to life just about a year ago and put it together. And the reason that we decided to do this is looking at trends in terms of color, material, design, but really also what motivates those trends has always been part of the practice of my studio. And we always share that with our manufacturing partners at least a year in advance because it takes time to design and develop and launch a product to market before the architects and interior designers ever see it and well before it ever goes into an actual property. And so we came up with this idea to share those trends with the industry at large. So rather than just sort of hold them and only develop product that you might get to see in a year, we said, let's bring this whole concept to the interior design community, the architectural community, and hospitality, and share not only the trends with them, but the process of forecasting itself. And so I love it because I sort of look at myself as a bit of an anthropologist in digging beneath the surface and seeing what makes those trends happen.
Without giving you away your secret sauce, how do you do that? What is some of your techniques, or how do you predict?
Yeah, we do. I do a lot of looking at different areas of life, whether that's how people are spending their free time, what kind of clothing they're wearing on the fashion side of things, what they're eating or choosing not to eat. So all kinds of different areas of our life give us a peek into what motivates people and what they're looking for. And so it's a process that I've learned. I learned it over 20 years ago as a member of a group called Color Marketing Group. And it's an international forecasting association focused primarily on color trends. But I took that practice and that whole concept of looking at what we would call the drivers, the things that are behind the scenes, making people want what they want. And I put that into more than just a color forecast, but a macro forecast. And so I'll be sharing that tonight in Phoenix with the NEWH community of Arizona and New Mexico. So that's a new chapter.
Yeah.
And sharing a lot of that information.
That's cool.
We're excited to hear it.
Yeah.
Is it usually like 3-5 years? What's sort of the time span that you think you can predict trends, especially nowadays where everything's moving so fast? Has that changed a little bit, how long trends last?
It does. I would say our studio is usually focused on 2 years. So we'll go 2 years at a clip because it's far enough out that we're forward with what we're looking at.
Yeah.
But it's not so far out that things are going to shift that drastically. And so we kind of find that 2 years is a sweet spot. Of course, there are people, they dub themselves futurists, not really trend forecasters. So the futurists will go 10, 15 years out about what they think is going to happen. And I follow many of them also because I find what they do fascinating. And with tech today, how right some of those predictions have been, which is amazing, and how fast they're happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The magic crystal ball that we all want.
The magic crystal ball. And it's a lot of it is best guess, but it's best guess based on variables that are happening in the markets, whether that's economic, technological, sort of understanding how You can converge different things and come up with where you predict people will be living or what they'll be eating or what they'll want to be doing with their time.
Yeah, what really fascinates about it is the depth, like you're saying as well. It's not just at a glance what's maybe trendy, but really understanding people. And I think that's why it will resonate with people as well. You're watching what people are moving into. So I love that depth about it.
Absolutely.
So,
and today, some of the research is coming also from some of the big data. I mean, Pinterest will publish reports on their most pinned concepts. What are people looking for? Millions of people on this platform. What are the things they're looking at? What's inspiring them? What do they aspire to wear or eat or cook or travel to? So, it's an interesting way to approach the forecasting too, because there is so much more information today.
It's interesting. You're telling people what they're going to like before they even know they're going to like it.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit of sort of following, the lead, right? So you're watching what people are interested in and then trying to fill in the blanks in between. And we're always looking for areas of convergence. So it's not just, I see this happening in interior design. It's you want to see a trend happening in multiple areas. So, whether that's travel, art, fashion, food, you sort of want to see it in different places. And then we'll call it a trend.
Yeah. Is it still the case that other areas like fashion, for example, they are a bit faster to spot something because once something triggers the interiors, it's much harder to implement a trend or execute it in an interior than fashion? Is that still the case that that's a little bit one step ahead?
Always.
You would say always.
Yeah, I would say always. Fashion is going to move faster than any kind of interior or architecture that has to be almost forever. So interiors, as you know, I mean, in the world of hospitality design, you're doing renovations every 7 years.
I mean, that's like
if your clients are behaving. But, it's got to live at least 7 years. And then for people who are investing in better quality materials on the upfront or maybe aren't tied to a brand standard, you might be able to get a 10-year lifespan and still have quality product that looks good over time.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's certainly not built to last forever as a building would be. And it is absolutely not built to change every season like fashion does. Yeah. So we watch fashion for indicators, for motif, for color palette, for technique to see, because when you're surrounded by things, if you're wearing them, there's a comfort level that you develop with things. And so once your comfort level is there and it's a fashion concept that maybe isn't leaving so fast, then you'll start to surround yourself with other items, maybe in that color palette or in that, vibe, in that motif. And you become more open to it.
I like it. Well, we're excited to hear all the trends tonight.
Yeah.
Is there one that you could give us a sneak peek of?
Yeah. Well, I know. So to the listeners, we actually had breakfast, so we were catching up earlier. But the one I wanted to talk about today here is called Oasis. And the reason to bring that up is I know this is a podcast and your practice is all focused on wellness, and really it's the holistic experience. And we talked a little bit about that this morning, but sort of mind, body, and spirit holistically working together. And our Oasis trend is an evolution off of the whole biophilic and sustainability concept that's been around a while. And so just to go back before we get into the details of it, one of the things we do with trend forecasting is we're always looking for evolution, not revolution. And so when we're looking to spot a trend, if it's something that happened really fast, we say fast equals fad. Trends happen over time. So if it's something that came out of TikTok and it's a hashtag TikTok trend, we say it's not really a trend. That's probably a fad. Let's not invest in those things. But trends will evolve over time, starting someplace, bubbling up, and then morphing into a new iteration of itself. And those are the things that we feel really confident in our studio saying, yes, this is something that's on trend, which to us means it will be around over the course of time. It's a good investment from an interior perspective or an architectural perspective. And you should feel confident putting your money into these kind of color palettes, materials, etc. So Oasis for us is an evolution of biophilic design and sustainable design and all of this concept of green interiors. And we saw over the last few years, whether it was living walls, you have tons of plants in your space, increases the quality of the air for people. this is now, okay, well, what's the next iteration? For us, it's about the understanding that our wellness, our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual well-being become front and center. And so it's not just, it's nature inspired. It's also how healthy do we feel in the environment? How well do we feel in the environment? And one of the interesting research points that I had found when I was digging into this trend was hospitality projects that are including a wellness component have upwards of a 26% increased RevPAR from that investment. So when you're looking at how that impacts your clients, it will give you a bigger return just to even put this wellness pillar into your property. So I found that fascinating. You know, it wasn't just good for your guests, it was good for your bottom line too. And we see it in everything. So when we talk about what are those drivers or how do we predict the trends, the concept of wellness now we're seeing, it's not just the fringe. It's not just, oh, she's a hippie, you know, she smells of patchouli and, you know, she's fun to have at a party because she's the first to get on the dance floor. And, you know, you know, she just really digs into it. No, it's it's not just the fringe anymore. I mean, I live in the suburbs of Manhattan and there's a hot yoga studio that opened that is packed. You've got to jump in there because you can't get a spot. So there's a craving to go deeper into our spiritual connection, to become sort of centered with ourselves. And some of this was motivated. I think we had an awakening over COVID. You know, some of this is trauma from that whole experience that we shared globally. It wasn't just in your town. This was a global experience. And I believe that there's going to be this sort of spiritual awakening and this mindfulness that's happening and the desire to reconnect with ourselves and to sort of what's true. And that's really what's driving this whole concept, you know, beyond the color and material story.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, you're speaking our language there.
Yeah, I know. And I think, you know, your firm has been ahead of it. I mean, you were sort of that, you know, weird friend that, just kidding. You know, maybe not wear the patchouli, but it was, you know, when you first started to go down this path, people weren't really talking about it. You happened to come, you know, from a place, Arizona's always been a place that was more connected to this idea, that had more practice already built into it. And the two of you were interested and, you know, tuned into it and decided to make it a core part of your practice. So I really believe that what you're doing is leading the charge in a much, much larger movement that will happen across the board, whether that's food, clothing, travel, practice, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right there. If you look at the Global Wellness Institute, they put out a sort of their trend document and their financial document. It used to be every 2 years. It's accelerating so fast now they do it every year. But yeah, you're right. The upward trajectory of the wellness has been pretty steep for the last 10 to 15 years. But then through COVID, it really accelerated.
Yeah.
And they measure 11 or 13 different industries that make up the financial model of the wellness economy, and by 2028 I think it's valued at $9 trillion. It's insane. And the two fastest growing segments are wellness tourism and wellness real estate. So it's coming in a pretty big way, and I think a lot of it is driven by the younger generation coming through that really are focusing on understanding their bodies. I think maybe our generation, you start to think about it later in life when you realize, oh, there's going to be an end at some point.
It's a little bit of a clock.
Wait, things are starting to deteriorate a little bit. Yeah, how can I fix it?
Because when you're young, you feel like you're invincible. I can do what I want to my body. I don't really care, blah, blah, blah. But the younger generation don't think like that. They're setting it up for success from a much younger age. So I think there's somebody we need to listen to.
For sure. I mean, it's interesting when we were kids. I mean, at least, you know, for myself, our parents grew up smoking in the house. You know, they were feeding us pre-packaged, you know, chemical dinners that came out of a little tinfoil box. It was not, you know, it wasn't even on the radar. We didn't know, you know, nobody knew how bad these things were for you. There has been so much information, so much access now to information that people are understanding it, and that if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And people are investing huge dollars into getting ahead of the, aging process or, the process of deterioration. And even in a young, healthy body, that understanding that my physical health might be fine, but if I'm not taking care of my mental well-being, it doesn't matter how good my body feels, because I'm going to be at a low. And so people are finding these places to reconnect with themselves, to connect with like-minded people, to unplug, to uncharge. One of the things that I just saw, again, in some of this research, I think it was the Netherlands, that is doing retreats where there is no electronics allowed. And so you're getting like 200-300 young people coming together, almost like some of it looks like it could be a big gymnasium, or they're setting it up where it looks like a giant coffee shop with sofas and things, and they'll do like a 24-hour, instead of like a sit-in, it's like they have board games. You can bring a book. You can just sit in a quiet beanbag chair. You could actually look at people in the eyes and have a conversation with them. And it's like mind-blowing, to young people. And I know for myself, we're so addicted to our tech. It's like if you hear a buzz, your first instinct is like, well, I got to answer that.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my brother, who's a PhD. He's an anthropologist. And he said to me, do you control your technology, or does your technology control you? And my first instinct was like, well, I control my technology. I don't even know what you're asking me. And he goes, well, when your phone buzzes, do you immediately pick it up? And I said, of course I do. Like, I can't help myself. And he goes, so basically you're Pavlov's dog. Your phone has trained you that when it dings or buzzes or vibrates, that you have a reaction to it. And if you don't look at it, you start to get anxious. Your tech controls you. So there's this whole movement of going, I'm leaving my phone behind, I'm leaving my laptop behind, and I'm just going to come totally analog and unplug for 24 hours.
That's a great word, because it just makes me think about it. There was one trend on the Global Wellness Summit as well, analog wellness, where it's really just going back to the origins of even playing records instead of playing music from your phone. So you don't have your phone with you.
Correct.
It's, I think the analog is really like one magic button that I really discovered within the last year is the silencing the notifications on my phone.
Right.
And it's scary because, like you're saying, there's this fear of like, I'm not on top of things or I miss out on things, but it's the way I can be creative now, knowing that it's not going to disturb me. It's not like hoping that no one will text me. I know for sure this phone, no one's going to disturb me in my zone.
Right.
It's really magical.
Yes.
And it's still scary, and I don't do it all the time. I know some people are brave enough to have it all day on notification, and they pick certain moments when they check their messages.
Right.
I'm not at that point yet, but I can imagine that that's amazing to be.
Right. And maybe that's a whole new trend. And it's funny, I think you almost have to train the people around you.
Yeah.
That this is what I'm doing. I am going a little bit more, I'm taking control back of my tech so it doesn't control me.
Yeah.
And I'll schedule time to look. And if there's an emergency, text Ben.
For sure, yes.
Because
communication
I
is
see it where
important,
people are like, the expectation is I buzzed you, you're going to buzz me right back. It's this instant gratification and an instant expectation because that's what we're used to. So we almost have to reset that with people if we are going to make that change so they know we're not just blowing them off, right? Or that we're okay. And I do think it's healthier.
Absolutely.
Well, you got 4 young-ish
Semi-young,
kids.
some young adults.
Yeah. How are they with technology? Do they have they've grown up with it, so is it just normal for them, or do you somehow try and regulate downtime?
It's tough. When they were younger, I did. I think I had more energy when they were younger too. So the joke is with my sons, we had no tech during the week. So once they were done with their homework, they could watch a TV show, and we had limited TV hours. But for many years, it was a weekend only thing. And then as my daughter, she's 10 years younger than my oldest, as she came up, her generation is called wired at birth. And now at this point, it's really not even wired, right? There's no plugs, it's all. But that was the concept of this generation grew up with an iPad in hand. And because it's such an intuitive tool, the babies can touch it and play it and know. I mean, it's wild. It was harder with her, for me. Just I think we were older, and her generation, this is their form of communication. And so it was almost harder because they're on Snapchat, they're on text. It is how they communicate. It's here and there she'll like FaceTime with her best friend, but otherwise it's all via Snapchat. Pictures and notifications, and they have streaks. And so removing that from her was almost removing her ability to socialize. So my rules changed, I think, as the world changed a little bit. But it's fascinating. I mean, I came home recently and she had red marks on her forehead and her nose, like around her eyes. And I said to her, what's going on? Like,
what trend is this?
Why are you all red here? Like, did something happen? And then she started to giggle and she goes, well, Gaga, who's the grandma, she left because I was busy. And so I was in the Oculus for like 2 hours with my boyfriend. And I'm going, oh Lord, they're on virtual dates now in like, this metaverse world and her avatar. And I said, well, what were you guys doing in the Oculus? And she goes, we went to a casino. We were gambling. I'm like, you're not 18. Like, you're not legal to gamble. She goes, Mommy, it's not real money. So I'm like, this is great. This is what my 14-year-old's doing, is like gambling with her boyfriend in a fake casino. So their world experience is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
And we'll need to build spaces in the metaverse for people to be able to retreat, to find like-minded people. So I think there's always kind of the counter effect to things. And tech is very much part of their world. But you're seeing also, like, my second son has been showing me videos of the rooftop tents you throw it on your car. I don't know if you've seen this. This is like a whole nother trend, right? So instead of just a regular tent, you hitch it to the top of your car, and there's campsites that are filled with these things. And so they're easier to open and set up. And he's planning his 6-week road trip this summer. He's still in college. And I go, you really need an internship. Like, you've got to get something on your resume. He goes, I have my whole life to be an adult. When else am I going to have 6 weeks to be able to camp? And I was like, all right, it's really hard to argue with that, like logic. So he's planning on taking his girlfriend and going on a road trip and hitting national parks and being in nature. And so while, yes, I'm sure he will be recording all of it on his telephone, on his iPhone or whatever, that idea that he's got a yearning to hit the road and sleep in nature and hear the sounds makes me really happy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Then going back to the Oasis trend, because what I really loved about what you were saying, it's an evolution. Like when you think about biophilia and sustainability, we've always been really passionate about it but we also felt like it's getting beaten like a dead horse. And then at some point it loses the meaning as well. And people just feel more like, I don't want to hear about sustainability anymore because I feel like something I have to do. So the evolution of that, and then also people connecting more with themselves with that rather than this is something I have to do.
Yes.
And through connecting with yourself and finding yourself, I think it's easier also to connect to nature and the consequences of what you're doing. So I'm trying to remember where I was going with that, but I think you're saying going out in nature and connecting with that, I think that's such a huge part, because I think when I think of Oasis, that for me, it's that really relaxing feeling that it's really connecting me to nature and another environment that gives me that awe, that wonder that we kind of like spoke about as well.
Absolutely.
So that's really nice to hear. And I feel like now that makes kind of all sense with that evolution, what you were saying.
It does. And taking the trend and sort of putting it into practical application, because obviously not everywhere can you go outside, in a Costa Rican jungle and have floor to ceiling windows and see the toucans flying outside your window. I did that, by the way.
I could tell there was a memory.
And we did yoga together as a family and overlooking the Pacific, and the toucans joined us at the end. It was fabulous. But you don't get that everywhere. So how do you put this into maybe more of an urban environment? I think it's the concept of also looking at what are the things that slow down our rhythm, bring us sort of back to center. And so some of that is circadian rhythm. So considering how can we bring natural lighting into the space, right? Can we open up windows? Can we create more areas for open air or natural light so that we can sort of connect, even if it's not with the jungle, with just those rhythms of life, of nature? that helps too. So I think those are some practical ways. And then material story. So again, even if you're not able to be near that, can you incorporate materials that feel textural, feel organic in nature, or are organic in nature, whether those are wood veneers or natural materials or elements like leather. It's interesting talking about where we see the overlap of things. And I see you're in your linen. I'm not. I'm in I have my cotton t-shirt, my Trentor t-shirt underneath. But I was just reading about how the material you put on your body vibrates at different frequencies. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting was linen is one of the highest frequency fibers that you can put on yourself. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I would say I didn't have the knowledge, I have the feeling of it.
Okay.
So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, so
now I know why, yes.
Yeah, so it's the natural fibers do have higher vibration, and they've done these scientific studies on them where they're hooking the fabrics up to, readers and sort of seeing what those vibrations are. So linen is actually one of the highest, if not the highest, that you can wear. And then, you have the cottons and the silks and things like that. Polyesters, which so much of us wear because it's easy and it's cheap, have a much lower vibrational reading, a much lower vibrational energy. And, you start to become conscious of that as well and thinking about how do you incorporate this wellness concept. Well, in hospitality, the practical pieces, and listen, I sell polyester fabrics. So from a flame retardancy, performance, so easy and safe to use. But even on the bedding, perhaps it's like a small shift within these spaces that are really aiming toward that to look and say, is there a cotton linen blend? And if it's wrinkled, that's half the look. It looks casual and it sleeps better and it has a better vibration. So it's really thinking about the material choices as well.
Yeah, I love that because when we started getting really interested in that a few years ago, I was always thinking about, we all talk about superfoods. And when you're mentioning polyester, it reminds me a little bit of a processed food versus a live food, that like a linen. And I was always thinking like in interiors, how do you incorporate the superfoods into the interiors?
Yes.
So you're nurturing your body and your environment as much as you do with food.
Right.
So that really brings me back to that thought. And I love that because it's happening. Like,
absolutely. And it doesn't have to be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not touching the drapes primarily. You're like, pulling on them and they serve a function. And we talked privately, but I'll bring it up, even the idea of the environmentally friendly, putting a blackout that has a foam back lining because it will protect from heat. So, you want to think about also not having to utilize so much air conditioning. How do you protect from heat in the desert sun? So there are practical reasons that also are sustainable to use more man-made, factory-made things. But the items that you're sleeping on, that you're putting your body in, that would be where I would start first. So when you think about the sheets or the towels, the bedding experience, I think that's where, like you said, you can go unprocessed on those. And then there are some really beautiful flame retardant and, materials that people aren't touching, but are there for a function.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So changing gears slightly, I'm going to throw one at you here. When we first moved to America and we got into the industry, we were like, oh, there's this Stacy Garcia. Who is this oracle that everyone talks about? And we've been very fortunate to get to know you really well over the last few years, especially personally. But I want to know, what does it take to be Stacy Garcia?
I mean, I could ask you the same thing, Dan. Tell me, what does it take to be Mendel Meyer? I don't think about it like that, right? Yeah. It's, I guess you just sort of get up every day. I think when you're younger, you have people who you look at and you aspire to be like them. And so you sort of get up every day and you try to act as if, or, whatever it is that they're doing, and that's the type of persona that you want to have or the type of person you want to be. I think as you get more comfortable in your own skin, and, the saying is out there because it makes sense, you can never be, you'd always be the second version of somebody else. So if my goal was to get up and be Martha Stewart, I'm only ever going to be the second best Martha Stewart that there could ever be, and that would be on a good day.
Right.
Or I could get up and try to be the best version of myself that I can be. And that really became what I started to aspire to, was how do I get up every day and try to be the best version of myself, put my best self out there, give love to people, build people up. And that, at the end of the day, my own motivation, and it's something I think about and try to kind of revisit a couple times a year even, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I always come back to my goal is to inspire. And so the inspiration can come through design. It can come through creating beauty. And it can come from conversations. It can come from just being together with people. And so that's sort of the path that I continue to walk is I'm always looking to grow myself. And so for me, people are interesting and beautiful and fascinating. And those are the people that I continue to attract, just this amazing community, whether it's within hospitality or outside. So for me, I've been really, really fortunate to have attracted and surrounded myself with like-minded people. And so it's really always learning about how to learn and grow and become more of myself. And it is attracting people that are like that I'm interested in and inspired by myself. And I think it becomes kind of a reciprocal community when you can build it like that and just sort of go into the world not trying to prove something, but really just to go and be a student.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's such a good reminder because when we're talking about technology and obviously social media being amazing in so many things, it also is so hard because it makes you want to be someone else or compete or be like someone.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful thing how you were saying, like, no, try to find who you are. And in a simple word, like you were saying, it's a very powerful word, inspire, but it's just sometimes it doesn't have to be this complicated persona. It's like one word that you resonate with that you take through everything you do, how you touch people.
Right.
And I think that's just a good reminder for people to listen to is to tap into what is that for you? What's that word that comes up and be that.
Right.
And then you can achieve all the things that other people are achieving that you're seeing, but it's with your own energy.
Yeah.
And you can just enjoy it much more because the comparison is really unhealthy. And there's just so much what's happening in social media. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's really good reminder.
And it's interesting too, like, the algorithms are built so that it just feeds you more of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I found 2 presidential cycles ago, I was like very, married to the outcome, right? And my feed was all of this political stuff. This time around, I was like, I'm surrendering. Whatever the outcome is fine. The universe has my back. The universe has the back of the people. And whatever's meant to be is going to be. And I get my vote in the voting booth. And I don't have to tell anybody, where I sit on the political aisle. It doesn't matter. And then I'm going to move forward with my world. And then I'll handle whatever comes my way. And I've grown up in a family that had lots of ups and downs through various political issues in the countries they came from. And so one of the things that taught me was you can be resilient no matter what. But what was interesting is my algorithm, because I wasn't watching any of it, it's all what you are watching. And so I started to like positive quotes that people were putting out. And I started to be more reactive and responsive on social media, and I wasn't even thinking about it. And then when you look at your For You page, it's like mine are all these like positive quotes or, women doing great things or, it's all of this inspiration. I went, oh, this is amazing. And then my daughter shows me her For You page, and hers is like people falling and getting hurt. It's like, I guess hers has a comedic bone to it. But, I think that's like a little microcosm of the way that the universe will reflect back to you.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, where are you putting your attention? What are you thinking about? And for me, and I know the word authentic or authenticity is a word that gets tossed around a lot these days, but it's sort of just being my own person and not worrying about too much what other people think, and and that's hard to do, right? We're always worried about being judged. So it's something that I've had to get conscious of, where it's like, oh, if they're judging me, it's really not about me, it's about them. And so I need to move through the world in a way that feels right for me, and the people who get me are going to get me. And it's really just about finding your tribe, your own people. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You just need to have people who are surrounding you. And actually, one of those videos, so it's funny, this was on the algorithm like yesterday or the day before. One of the videos was about creating a movement. And they showed somebody at a music festival dancing alone. Everybody else is on this hill listening to the music. I don't know if you've seen this.
Not this one. I think so, something along those lines.
Along the line. So here's this guy, and he's shirtless. Okay, he's in his short shorts. He's out there. Everyone else is on their picnic blankets listening to this festival, and he is just feeling the rhythm. He's out there dancing by himself, alone for minutes. And then, and the person who was sort of, dictating over is going like, how do you feel watching that? Like, how does that make you feel? There's this one lone guy. And then guy number 2 jumps in. So guy number 2 jumps in, and he starts dancing with guy number 1. And it's just the 2 of them, but it feels less uncomfortable as the viewer. It feels a little less awkward because now guy's not dancing by himself. Guy number 2 is there. And a few more minutes pass, and some more people trickle in. And once they got to about 10 or 15 people, everybody starts to get up off their blankets. Everybody starts to get up off their blankets and move down and dance over there, dance their way in, to the point that then as you're watching this video, you see people running down the hill like they couldn't get there fast enough. There's no one sitting now. Now there's hundreds of people at a music festival dancing on the hill. And he spoke about sometimes, to start a movement or to be your authentic self, it's scary. It's a lonely place. You got to be weird and out there and put yourself at risk emotionally. You have to be vulnerable. But if you are willing to go through that hard part, that awkward phase, if you're willing to do that and be the guy standing on the hill dancing by himself, you're also the guy who starts the movement.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
Stacy. And then now it made me think like me watching it, I would want to then watching my phone dance myself watching it. So
Totally.
it goes beyond that one community.
Totally. And I feel like that's,
Yeah.
it's the metaphor for everything.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether it's your health, being authentic about who you are, putting together concepts, for what you do, what we do, hospitality or, real estate, being ahead of the curve on something that you believe makes sense for you, not because you think it's going to make you money, but because it speaks to you and your soul and your being, and kind of following that and knowing that like your tribe will come, your movement will come if you just keep putting yourself out there.
Very cool. Well, we see you at so many of the shows, and I know so many people look up to you. To wrap up, what would you say to the young generation of designers coming through into the industry of like, what piece of advice would you give them, or are they okay to come up and say hi to you when they?
Oh gosh, are you kidding? All right. So first of all, be forewarned. I'm a hugger.
Right.
Okay. So if you're uncomfortable with physical touch, then you should probably like wave at me from afar, because if you get anywhere within my grasp, I will grab you, hug you, pull you in and tell you it's nice to meet you. That's, it is my language, and I like to be close to people. I like to make people feel comfortable. We're in this hospitality industry. I find most people in our industry are totally fine with it, but just be forewarned. So yes, please come introduce yourself, say hello. I love meeting new people. I love expanding my network. It feels like a perfect setup to also mention Martha's Mentors. And so that's a program that is really dear to my heart. I started this with NEWH. And so we had our first cohort last year. It is a mentorship program that it's an application process. The 2 of you should put in your applications to be mentors next year. And Martha was actually my mentor. So she and I shared a birthday. This is where I believe like the universe, everything is ordered and it all is supposed to be a certain way. Martha and I met when I was first starting out in the hospitality industry and took me under her wing. I was a designer. She was doing the business and the admin piece and the operations, and she taught me everything from how to factor yardage and textiles to make a sample book to how to work a trade show, like how to look someone in the eyes, cheat and look at their badge, shake their hand, and introduce yourself. I didn't know anything. And she taught me all of this and became my friend and became my mentor and became like family to me. So you can have an impact on somebody. You know, she wasn't being paid to do this. She was just a natural mentor. And she meant so much to me in my life. She was at my wedding. She was at like my children's bar mitzvahs, her and her husband, Al. And so when she passed away, I wanted to say thank you to the person who poured so much into me in my career. And so I talked to Sheila and the NEWH people and told them I had this idea that there's a lot. We know, scholarship is a huge part, but there's lots of great scholarships. And I felt like mentorship was missing from our organization. And so the Martha's Mentor Program was built to pair seasoned professionals with people who are starting out in their career within hospitality. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is it's not just open to young people who are just graduated and started in the industry. It's open to people who maybe shifted careers midlife or were in hospitality but went from interior design to sales or sales to management. So there's always shifts within our careers, and we need mentorship at every level. So we opened it to people who were in their job for less than 5 years and paired them with seasoned mentors. And so last year's cohort, we had 10 pairs. This year we have 21.
Amazing. And
I'm really excited about the feedback that we're getting. And I feel like we're leaving a good legacy to my friend and mentor, but also paying it forward. So for professionals who are starting out looking for mentorship, or if you're listening and you're a seasoned person and you're trying to figure out how to give back without leading a committee or something like that, this might be a good one. Again, it's called Martha's Mentors, and it is on the NEWH website.
Amazing. Well, you're inspirational to us, and it's lovely to hear how you're inspiring the industry as a whole. So thank you so much.
Yeah, an absolute inspiration. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, and if your listeners are interested in more information on our trend tour, they can find out info on our trends on stacygarcia.com, or follow us on my socials at Stacy Garcia Studio. And my personal is Garcia_Globetrots if you want to see where in the world I'm traveling.
I always love
days.
that one.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Stacy. To be continued, because I feel like I could talk for hours with you.
Me too.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank
Great.
you. I feel like we should do a namaste.
Yeah.